Hello, I'm Tony Craig. This is F1 Grandstand. And yeah, we've got some breaking news. Though Ford, Cadillac rivalry taking shape in the world of Formula One. So earlier this week, Cadillac, Dan Tauris, fired shots directly at Ford, saying their involvement with Red Bull is nothing more than a marketing exercise. Well, Ford have responded, and it's the bigwigs. You've got Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, speaking up, and Henry Ford's great-grandson, Chairman Bill Ford, also has his say. This is going to be great for the sport. But speaking of the sport, if you're an F1 fan, then of course you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Smash a like on the video if you enjoy it. And do me a favour. Behind the subscribe button, where you subscribe to this channel, there are 4 options. Please, please, please make sure that you make the bell all icon has a tick next to it. That way you get all the notifications for all of our videos, watch-alongs, content, etc. And then you get to choose which content that you engage with. Thank you so much for all of your support. But yeah, we've got to get into this. So earlier this week on F1 Grandstand on our live shows, we were talking about Cadillac attacking Ford, basically. So it started off with Dan Tauris, who's the CEO of the Cadillac F1 project, and he criticized Ford's involvement with Red Bull as, he basically said, just a marketing deal. It's not even, and he said it's not even close to what Ford are doing compared to what General Motors / Cadillac are doing. One is a marketing deal with very minimal impact, while GM is an equity owner in the Cadillac team. They're deeply embedded from an engineering standpoint, and they were involved from day one. Those two deals couldn't be more different. Then we had the global director of Ford Racing, Mark Rushbrook, saying people have their opinion, but if they saw what was going on, if we were able to open the doors and show everything to them, I think they'd be convinced very quickly it's not simply a marketing program. Of course, there is an element, but we're in there with our sleeves pulled up. We're doing it together with Red Bull, but it's a massive challenge, just in terms of the technical challenge and the pace that we need to move. So that was what happened a couple of days ago. Well, it's escalated, as things do. So obviously, Red Bull had their livery launch in Detroit this week. All the bigwigs were from Ford were there, and Ford have had their chance to hit back at Cadillac. And I'm telling you now, they poked the bear, and Ford are annoyed. They are annoyed. So let's first of all talk about the comments that Jim Farley, Ford CEO, has said during the Fast and the Curious podcast, because he was asked, why have Ford come back to Formula One? Because remember, Ford were in Formula One up until 2004, where they were supplying engines to the Jaguar team. Interestingly, though, who did Jaguar sell their team to? It was Red Bull. And now Ford are in partnership with Red Bull for the power units. Full circles and all of that. So anyway, Jim Farley says, we did it because in a company like Ford, if you want to be a great company and compete against the Chinese, we have to take on projects that almost seem impossible. This is almost an impossible kind of project. Our engineers have been there in Milton Keynes for 4 years. We have done everything we can, but it's not just getting to peak power. We have to have drivability, we have to have reliability as well with that PU. And this is one of the hardest projects I've seen in my career. And I think we need to stay realistic. I'm very proud that the team isn't like our competitor down the street, he's talking about Cadillac, have a Ferrari engine. I like the fact that we're doing it ourselves. We're taking on this, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be successful. And then we've got, this is brilliant. So then we've got the great-grandson of founder Henry Ford, who is the chairman of Ford, Bill Ford. And he said he was stunned upon reading the comments from their competitor. And these are, and he said Tauris comments were absurd. I would say, actually, the reverse is true. They're running a Ferrari engine. They're not running a Cadillac engine. I don't even know if they have a GM employee on the race team. Oh, see, what's happening here is Cadillac and Ford, the huge companies, corporations in the US. F1's growing in the US, which is brilliant, and this is good for the sport because, from my understanding, is you've got a lot of people in the US that are they're Ford, they're GM, and the camp is split in two, and so you're gonna get loyalties to either side. But I want to know what your opinions are. What do you think about this rivalry, and where does it lead us? And I have an idea where this could lead. So, obviously, Cadillac's name is across the door. This is the difference. Cadillac have to all intents and purposes a works team. Now, yes, they brought that team to the grid by buying a Ferrari engine, Ferrari gearbox, and God knows what other Ferrari parts to get them on the grid in 26. Their intention, though, is to be an all-American team. Their intention is to have a Cadillac power unit running that car, my understanding is, in 2028. So every team that comes to Formula One has to, if the shortcut is to buy parts and become a customer team. Haas did it. They are a customer team of Ferrari. They're pretty much 80% Ferrari. Ferrari gearbox, Ferrari engine, Ferrari suspension. Anything they're allowed to buy within the rules, they put on that Haas car. Cadillac said right from the beginning, that's not our intention. We are going to be an all-American team, a full General Motors team, and we're going to do that as quick as we possibly can. So we need to give them a few years to do that. Now, Ford is slightly different. Ford are in partnership with Red Bull purely on powertrains. So they are supplying the Red Bull team. Now, here's where I think it gets interesting. If Cadillac keep poking the bear of Ford, and then we marry that with the situation where the teams on the grid now are pushing back because they're unhappy with Red Bull having effectively 4 drivers on the grid because they've got 2 teams, right? However you look at it, you've got Red Bull and you've got Racing Bulls. Now, the FIA state that those teams need to operate independently. But all the other teams are saying, well, they don't operate independently. The drivers get promoted or demoted at will. And what's just happened is 40 engineers have been moved from Racing Bulls to Red Bull. So as you can see, they are operating as one big organisation, and that is against the rules. So we are having more pushback from the other team saying, look, this can't go on. And here's what I think is going to happen. If Ford get more and more annoyed by what's going on at Cadillac, I can see Ford becoming the owner and works team and taking over Racing Bulls. Why not? They've already got the partnership with Ford already. They'll be running the same engines. They can still have that special relationship, but Ford become a works team by taking over Racing Bulls. Because is it sustainable that Red Bull can have 4 cars on the grid? Does that damage the integrity of the sport? And I think you could argue it does. So I think there is a pathway for Ford to make a purchase of Racing Bulls. Now, we know that Red Bull were offered, I think, 1.2 billion for that Racing Bulls team, maybe a year in 2023, which they turned down. But they may be forced to sell, because how long can it go on that Red Bull are literally controlling 2 teams on the grid and basically can influence the race by having 4 drivers on the grid? That is not sustainable. Ford are going to get more and more annoyed. And what we know from history is you challenge Ford, they come back fighting, and I can see that is where this leads. But let me know what you think. Get your opinions in the comments, and will get back to you all. Thank you so much for watching the video. I will see you on the next one. Ta-ta.